Police say some evidence in a Scott County murder investigation has disappeared. Could that impact the case against the man now charged with the crime?
Just weeks before his trial is scheduled to begin, a Central Kentucky murder suspect had a noticeable new look in court today.
I had to take care of him.
How Kentucky's drug epidemic is now forcing some grandparents to take on a new role.
WKYT News starts now with breaking news.
Good evening. Some frightening moments for a man this afternoon when investigators say his boat got stuck on a lock along the Kentucky River.
Emergency crews were called in to rescue the man in the river near Lock 5 Road in Anderson County. But we've also learned the man ended up being arrested after he made it out of the water. Monique Blair has the breaking details.
The scene out here on Lock 5 Road is clear now, but just a few moments ago it was very active after a man got stuck while riding his fishing boat out here on the Kentucky River that is just beyond this fence behind me. Anderson County firefighters tell us when they got on scene, the man had likely been stuck on the lock for about 30 minutes. Using two boats, crews were able to rescue the victim, who we are told was very panicked and that he repeatedly thanked the crews for saving his life. Once everyone was back on land, the man was arrested. Kentucky Fish and Wildlife arrested him but have not released the reason behind that arrest. Firefighters say the man claims he was riding in his fishing boat when it ran out of gas, causing him to get stuck on some rocks. Firefighters tell me they respond to emergency calls at this lock about once a year.
They cannot go over the lock. It's actually, the lock belongs to the Kentucky River Authority and it's private property.
Is it illegal to go over the lock?
It is illegal.
Okay. Firefighters tell us that man was riding in his fishing boat alone and he was not hurt. Reporting in Anderson County, Monique Blair, WKYT.
Monique, thank you. 6 years after police say a man killed a retired school bus driver at her Scott County home, his case still hasn't gone to trial. But tonight, we've learned prosecutors may have a major problem.
Nicholas Willinger faces murder, robbery, and burglary charges for the 2010 death of Sue Jones. During a recent hearing, court documents revealed some of the evidence in the case has disappeared. Garrett Weimer has our top story at 6.
The case was originally supposed to go to trial next week. That won't happen. A judge still has to decide what happens next, though, after court records say 2 large notebooks of files were lost. According to documents Willinger's attorneys filed in Scott County Circuit Court, the detective investigating the case put those notebooks on his bookshelf when he retired. He says he did not know what happened to them, and the attorneys say KSP told them they could not be found. Defense attorneys now want the case against their client, Nicholas Willinger, to be dismissed. Their filed motions say the loss of evidence violates Willinger's right to due process, among other things. They say the lost binders of information likely contained exculpatory information as well. That's evidence that could be used to help clear Willinger. Now, another document I pulled from the case file here outlines the steps the detective took to investigate the murder. He says when he retired, he had exhausted all leads and the case had gone cold. In Scott County, Garrett Weimer, WKYT.
Willinger will be back in court on August 22nd for a status hearing. Last year, a second suspect, C.G. Jefferson, pleaded guilty to complicity to commit burglary in connection to this case.
He's already been convicted of killing one former girlfriend, and next month, Bass Webb is scheduled to stand trial for the murder of a second former girlfriend. Police say the victim, Sabrina Vaughn, was killed in Montgomery County in 2003, but the trial will be held in Rowan County, where a hearing in the case was held today. And as Victor Puente tells us new at 6, Webb now has a new look.
It can be difficult to keep track of all of Bass Webb's charges and convictions. Today's hearing was a pretrial conference for a murder he's accused of committing 13 years ago. Sabrina Vaughn went missing from Montgomery County in 2003. Her remains were found in 2010. Her ex-boyfriend, Bass Webb, was charged with her murder. He's already serving a 50-year sentence for killing his ex-girlfriend, Bria Runowitz, in Harrison County while her children were in the home. Today he came into the courtroom with tattoos that read "Kill Rats" and "Those That Must Die" above a list that included all judges, prosecutors, cops, the media, 3 rats that had been crossed out, and many more. The tattoo on the other side of his head is an expletive, and we can't show you. Today, Judge Beth Lewis Mays said they expected to get a couple of alternate jurors because this trial could be lengthy.
My thought was, if this is going for a month, my thought was 5 or 6 alternates.
Webb is also serving a 37-year prison sentence for trying to hit 2 Bourbon County jail employees with a car in 2009. He also spit in the face of a judge after she recused herself from that case. This trial was moved to Rowan County because of publicity in Montgomery County. As long as there are no other delays, this case should go to trial September 6th at 8:30 in the morning. In Rowan County, Victor Puente, WKYT.
In 2013, Webb was convicted of third-degree assault for spitting in the face of a corrections officer in Fayette County. New tonight, police are looking for a man they say robbed a Northern Kentucky restaurant at gunpoint. It happened just before noon today at a Little Caesars Pizza in Florence. Police released this surveillance video of the suspect. They say he showed a gun wrapped in a red cloth and demanded money from the safe. After getting some money, police say the robber then ran off.
You probably noticed it as soon as you stepped outside. It is a steamy day, and that's now led to some storms. Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey has an early look at your forecast.
Yeah, the steamy conditions and the thunderstorms kind of go hand in hand on a day like this in the Bluegrass State. And the thunderstorms will eventually win the battle over the steam, but the steam isn't going down without a fight. It feels like it is 96 degrees in Lexington and Mount Sterling. Look at Jackson, 97 is what it feels like. That's what your body thinks the temperature is. Actual thermometers are into the 80s, mid to upper 80s across central and eastern Kentucky. So it is the humidity and not necessarily the actual thermometer reading. Southern Kentucky, we've been firing up a couple of raindrops here to the west of London, and that may try to cruise into the Mount Vernon area. Also a little thunder and lightning now showing up west of Jackson in Breathitt County. We've had a slow-moving thunderstorm on top of parts of Morgan County over the past little bit. That may impact parts of Cave Run Lake. Lexington Metro, high and dry so far on the day. Southerly flow coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. You can see how the clouds are beginning to filter on in. What about as the sun sets? Well, a lot of the isolated showers and storms that are out there will begin to wind down as we go into early tomorrow morning. We'll kind of get back into that same old pattern, but you see that big area of low pressure that is across the Gulf of Mexico has a tropical influence with it, and coming up in a few minutes we will track what is down there into the Bluegrass State with a new rainfall forecast for the next 7 days.
It is a new role for many grandparents in Kentucky, being parents to young children again. The Cabinet for Health and Family Services says there's been a 26% increase in the number of children leaving the state's care and going to live with a relative, many times a grandparent. And many times it's because the parents are struggling with drugs. WKYT's Miranda Combs takes us to Rowan County.
This one was Jacob when he was a baby. And this was his mommy when she was a baby.
You can read a family's history by the pictures on the wall. The good times, mostly.
That's when we went on a cruise last year. He loved it.
But behind this smile is a mom.
I'm 32, and I'm just now getting it together.
That calls this grandmother her share of heartache.
It's a terrible thing. I mean, I used to go hunt for her on the street and try to bring her home. And one day she told me, she says, Mom, you can't do this. You're going to get killed out here. You don't know what you're doing.
So Doris Whitaker stayed back and raised the rest of her family in her Rowan County home and let her daughter, Kayla, deal with her drug addiction in Lexington alone for years.
I was at a very bad place in my life at that point.
And the night she went in labor, she called me. Of course, I went.
And she met her first grandchild.
He was a doll.
But the hospital visit turned into more of a promise.
I had to take him, I had to take care of him.
I felt like he was better off without me if I couldn't get my stuff together.
I didn't know what I was going to do. But the neighbors, everybody found out I was coming home with a baby and had nothing. And by the time I got home with him, I didn't need for anything.
And 7 years went by and hung on the wall.
Did you think about him? A lot. A lot. And I just couldn't get it together. I just couldn't get it together for a long time.
This family is more common than not these days. Rowan County Attorney Cecil Watkins.
I talk to a grandparent every day that's raising their grandkids. Every day.
He says in his county, 90% of the time children are taken from their parents' custody, it's because of drugs. And one of the first calls Child Services makes is to family, grandparents.
They don't have to, and I feel kind of bad for them at different points because, you know, they've already raised one child and then they're having to raise other children.
It's so common in court, his pep talk has a single message. The change in roles make for a long road.
I usually have the conversation with them when it comes to their particular child. Your grandchild's first, and that's priority one.
If he asks questions now, we just try to tell him that she was sick, and it is a sickness.
And now her 7-year-old sees her well.
I'm not where I want to be right now, but I've definitely come a long way from where I was at.
She's been sober almost a year. Her mother still has custody of her son.
He needs his mom. I mean, I'm grandma. Even though, you know, I played the role, I'm still grandma. She's his mother, and she'll be a good one.
Plenty of space for new history to be made.
I'm getting it together slowly but surely, but, you know, I just got to take things one day at a time and not overwhelm myself.
He keeps me young. I mean, you know, when you're up in your 40s running after a little one, they keep you hopping. I mean, I can't say I regretted it. I'm just thankful to have them all back together now.
And in regard to that 26% increase in children being placed with relatives statewide, keep in mind that's just the children that went from the state's custody to a relative's care. It doesn't include the number of children that go straight from a relative to another relative in the family.
And Miranda, we might add, this just isn't grandparents are having to take custody, right?
Right, those state numbers were actually any relative. And when the promo started for this story, I got an email from somebody that said, hey, don't forget about aunts and uncles that are stepping in for this as well. So it takes a family.
It certainly does. Miranda, thank you.
Thank you.
Today, many people in Falmouth got a closer look at the mess caused by a train derailment in the middle of their town. An update on the cleanup is next.
And then our investigators ending closer to finding a cause of a fire that caused extensive damage at a Richmond store earlier this week. The cleanup continues tonight, a day after investigators say nearly a dozen train cars derailed in downtown Falmouth.
They say the CSX train was heading from Cincinnati to Atlanta when it derailed yesterday morning. Dozens of workers spent the day working to remove the derailed train cars and repair the track, but they're not sure how long that process will take. Some of those cars ended up dangerously close to a few homes.
I've never seen nothing like this in my life, you know, and probably never will again, and hope I never do, you know. I'm just glad nobody, you know, got seriously hurt or anything like that. So, yeah, it's really something to see.
Investigators are still trying to figure out what caused the derailment. We have some new information about the investigation into a fire at a Richmond store. Firefighters say Tuesday's fire caused extensive damage to the Family Dollar on East Main Street. They say they've not figured out the cause of the fire, but they still consider it suspicious. Firefighters say Richmond police are now handling a criminal investigation into the fire, and they say they've also turned over their investigation to the store's insurance company.
Now, your hour-by-hour forecast with Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey.
Tropical skies again today, producing some scattered showers and thunderstorms, especially southern and eastern parts of the area. Everybody getting in on the steamy weather. We look outside live sky cam in Lexington, and we can kind of cut the humidity with a knife. It feels like it is 96 degrees right now in Lexington, even though it's only 89 degrees. It is the humidity that is doing all the dirty work across the region, and it's also firing up a couple of scattered showers and some thunderstorms. Notice how we're not getting this big push of heavy rain yet. That's what's coming later this weekend and next week. Short term, it's about some scattered stuff. We've had a little rain here into Williamsburg, and northbound we go on 75 into parts of Laurel County. A couple of drops also showing up not too far away from Berea into southern parts of Madison County. Hey, Breathitt County, yesterday you had a thunderstorm go through there. You got another little thunderstorm that is just to the northwest of Jackson. Heavy rains for the past hour across the West Liberty area, beginning to finally wind down as that stuff crosses the border into Rowan County. Lexington Bluegrass region, not a whole lot that is out there across central Kentucky. It's been that way for a couple of days, and the complaint department really isn't picking up on too many complaints out there, courtesy of the showers and storms at least missing the region now. That'll change up, though, as we go into the weekend. Yesterday, if you were watching me, we were looking at this big center or this big area of low pressure spinning across parts of the Gulf Coast states into the Gulf of Mexico. Guess what? It hasn't moved very much at all, dumping a tremendous amount of rain. Slowly but surely, though, that is going to walk its way up the Mississippi River and into the Ohio River. We look at a rainfall forecast from a computer model for the next 7 days. Can you pick out where the model thinks whatever that entity is going to be going? Look at that. And that kind of curves its way right on into the Bluegrass state. How quickly it kind of makes that turn will be the deciding factor on how much rain you get where you live over the next week and change. But this is just a snapshot in time. Models have been kind of going back and forth on exactly where to take that. Best chance for heaviest rains right now coming later Sunday into Monday, Tuesday. We may keep that going all the way into the middle of next week. And over the course of the next few days, any one day can make it into washout material. Concentrate on the day tomorrow. It's a lot like today, a little better thunderstorm action into the afternoon. Temperatures upper 80s. It'll feel like mid to upper 90s again. Through the remainder of the evening and through tomorrow morning, it is steamy. Watch out for a little fog. Tomorrow afternoon, look familiar? Upper 80s, chance for a scattered thunderstorm or two. Friday evening plans. Many of us will have to sweat it out on the patio for having dinner at our favorite restaurant. Into Saturday, threat for some thunderstorms increasing. And watch what happens as we go into Sunday. Showers and thunderstorms kind of coming at us in waves from southwest to northeast. Overall, this is a pattern that is tropical in nature, and it has some tropical rain-producing showers and thunderstorms that are loaded up and aimed toward the Bluegrass state in the coming week.
We better just get ready, right?
Yeah, you're either going to sweat it out or you're going to get rained on. Either way, it's not pretty.
Got it. Chris, thank you.
All right.
Brian, I can't believe it. Just 8 days from the start of high school football season.
I know. I can't wait either. And neither can Tate's Creek, who wants to finish what they start. And it's been pretty hot outside, thanks to Bailey. But Darren Henshaw has turned up the thermometer even higher and hotter on quarterback Drew Barker. Sports is next. Perfection is the name of the game when it comes to the UK offense. Quarterback Drew Barker hasn't mastered the new offensive playbook just yet, but his coaches say he's getting close. Quarterbacks coach Darren Henshaw says there are times when Barker is really good, but there are too many times when Barker needs to grow up a little bit. Henshaw said he's cranking up the heat on Drew Barker.
He's only played in a couple games and all those kind of situations, so I'm constantly putting pressure on him. I'm constantly, I should say, heating up the kitchen, trying to cook some eggs and different things in his kitchen, trying to get him to be uncomfortable so that he's more comfortable when the actual game comes around.
23 is the magic number today. Just about 3 weeks until UK and Southern Miss get it on. 23, the number worn by Nat Northington, Donnie Red, Alfred Rawls, and many others. Last season, Chris Westery and Matt Elam made 23 tackles, and the great Bear Bryant lost 23 games while he was the head coach at UK. He won 60 and had 5 ties. Go to WKYT.com for the complete rundown of our days in the countdown. We return to Lexington for tonight's 27 teams in 27 days football preview. The Tates Creek Commodores were so close in many games last year. Now this year, it's all about finishing.
A 5-6 record in 2015 is somewhat deceiving, especially when you break down what Tates Creek did and didn't do last season.
If we learn how to close out and finish games, that's the difference between 5-5 and 8-2. My personal opinion, I think we only had 2 games that we were not in, we were not competitive in. We had opportunities to be successful, but we couldn't close them out. And we have to finish those.
Creek will have to recover from massive graduation losses on the offensive side of the football.
We're replacing all 5 starters on the offensive line. I don't know how you go into a season, you're replacing 5 stars on the offensive line as well as the trigger man. So there has to be a camaraderie between those 6 for us to be successful on the offensive side of football.
Cameron Workman is the new QB who does have the luxury with LaRon Warner in the backfield and the 1-2 punch at receiver with Jackson Bierman and Turner Gentry.
Having Jackson on the outside, Turner on the inside, being quick, definitely knowing where to stop. Like if the coverage is set up, he'll stop where there's nobody there. And Jaden Baird on the backside, that's definitely a plus.
And then we have a few new people that we're going to add in to the receivers, the running backs, the linemen, that are going to switch it up a little bit and give us a new vibe on the offense.
So 8 days until the start of the high school football season, and we will have more previews over those next several days. Back to you guys.
A final check of your first alert forecast is next.
And then on the CBS Evening News, the federal government is keeping marijuana on its list of most dangerous drugs. You'll hear from those who say marijuana does have medical benefits.
Steam and storms. Steam and storms.
That's pretty much it. It just kind of rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? We look outside over the next few days, and the steam is tomorrow. And really, we keep the steam through the weekend. We just add a greater threat for some thunderstorms out there. Temperatures tomorrow similar to today. It'll be in the upper 80s. We'll tickle 90, but it's going to feel like 95 to 100 at times.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We will see you back here at 11.